Everybody is feeling at least a little bit nervous about what our future with artificial intelligence will actually look like. There's a vast spectrum of possibilities. The dystopian nightmare of Skynet to a utopian world where no one ever has to work again. But for most of us, the immediate concern is personal. Is my job next? Will a robot, or more likely a piece of software, end up doing my job better than I can? It's a question that keeps people up at night, imagining a not-so-distant future where their skills, their experience, their entire career become obsolete with the rollout of a new algorithm. This anxiety isn't just a vague fear. It's shaping conversations around dinner tables and in corporate boardrooms. On one side are the optimists. They point to history, the printing press, the steam engine, the internet, and say economies got wealthier. They argue old jobs get replaced and new, often better, jobs are created elsewhere. On the other side are the skeptics. Past revolutions replaced our muscles with machinery. That let us pivot to use our minds. But what happens when machines start replacing our minds? If AI can think better and faster, reason better and faster, create better and faster, what unique value do humans have left to offer economically? This strikes at the core of our identity. Nobody can predict the future with absolute certainty, least of all economists, who are often famous for getting it wrong. But we don't need a crystal ball to see early impacts. The effects of AI on labor markets are already unfolding around the world. Some countries are already experiencing widespread consequences, serving as real-time laboratories for what the rest of us might face. The future is already here, and it's arriving faster for some than for others. To truly grasp the significance of the AI revolution, we have to understand how it differs from the technological shifts of the past. Think about the Industrial Revolution. When we invented machines like the power and the steam engine, we were primarily automating physical labor. These machines replaced the power of human and animal muscles, allowing one person to do the work that previously required dozens. A farmer with a tractor could plow a field in a fraction of the time it took with a horse and plow. This was a massive change, but it freed up human beings to focus on tasks that required cognitive skills: planning, managing, designing, problem-solving. This was a revolution of muscle. This historical pattern has led many to believe that technology is always a net positive for labor. The argument goes that as machines take over tedious tasks, humans are elevated to more complex and fulfilling roles. When ATMs were introduced, many predicted the end of the bank teller. While the number of tellers per branch did decrease, banks opened more branches, and tellers transitioned into more sales-oriented roles, customer relationship roles. The technology didn't eliminate the job, it changed it. It allowed human workers to focus on their uniquely human skills, like communication, persuasion, while the machine handled the repetitive task of dispensing cash. This is the optimistic story we often tell ourselves about technology. However, the AI revolution is fundamentally different because it isn't targeting our muscles. It's targeting our minds. Large language models and other advanced AI systems are becoming incredibly proficient at tasks that were once considered the exclusive domain of human intellect. They can write code, draft legal documents, analyze financial reports, and even create art. These aren't routine physical tasks. These are cognitive tasks that form the basis of many white-collar professional jobs. So, if the last revolution allowed us to leverage our minds over our muscles, what do we have left to leverage when machines can outthink us? This is the central question that makes the current technological shift so disruptive and, for many, so frightening. It forces us to reconsider what it means to be a valuable worker in the 21st century. The challenge is no longer about working harder or even just smarter in the traditional sense. It's about finding new ways to contribute that machines can't easily replicate. To see the leading edge of this disruption, we don't need to look into a far-off future. We just need to look at countries like the Philippines and Bangladesh. For the last 3 decades, these economies have meticulously built entire industries around outsourced service work. Global corporations, primarily from North America and Europe, discovered they could significantly cut costs by hiring workers in these countries to perform tasks like customer support, data entry, transcription, and basic IT help. These jobs were long considered safe from automation because they required a nuanced understanding of language, cultural context, and that special human touch that machines simply couldn't mimic. They became the bedrock of a rising middle class in these nations. Well, it turns out that machines have gotten alarmingly good at replicating that human touch. Advanced AI tools, particularly large language models, can now handle these very tasks in a matter of seconds and at a tiny fraction of the cost of a human worker. An AI can answer customer queries 24/7 without needing a break, transcribe audio with near-perfect accuracy, and process mountains of data without getting tired or making errors. As a result, the jobs that make up a significant portion of the GDP in many developing countries are now looking like the first dominoes poised to fall in the age of AI. The very foundation of their economic growth model is suddenly on shaky ground. The statistics are staggering and paint a concerning picture. In the Philippines, the International Monetary Fund estimates that a shocking 89% of jobs in the business process outsourcing sector are at high risk of being automated by AI. This isn't a distant threat. It translates to over 1 million people whose livelihoods could disappear within the next few years. This industry contributes over 7% of the country's entire GDP, making the potential economic shockwave immense. Companies that once relied on Filipino workers are already integrating AI to cut costs, with roughly 2/3 of outsourcing firms in the country now using these tools to streamline their workflows, a trend that is only accelerating. The story is similar in Bangladesh, where the outsourcing sector has grown to employ over 80,000 people across hundreds of firms. The vast majority of this work centers on customer service, data entry, and transcription, precisely the tasks that AI is becoming incredibly efficient at automating. If an AI system can deliver the same, or even better, quality of work, at a higher speed and for significantly less money, there's simply no compelling economic reason to continue outsourcing. A single server rack in a data center could soon replace an entire call center in Manila or Dhaka. This fundamentally rewrites the rules of globalization that have defined the last 30 years, threatening to halt the progress many emerging economies have fought so hard to achieve. This shift doesn't just threaten jobs in one sector. It creates a profound and widening gap between the world's richest countries and everyone else. While developing nations face the imminent risk of losing entire industries, developed nations are poised to reap enormous economic benefits. According to the Center for Economic Policy Research, the United States could see its GDP boosted by as much as 5.4% over the next decade, thanks to productivity gains driven by AI. United Kingdom, Germany, South Korea aren't far behind with similar projections. Meanwhile, lower-income countries are looking at much more modest gains, a stark reversal of the trend where developing economies were expected to grow faster and catch up. The reason for this divergence is twofold. First, AI is enabling a phenomenon known as reshoring. For decades, companies moved jobs overseas to take advantage of cheaper labor. But if an AI in a local data center can perform the same tasks more cheaply and efficiently than a human worker in another country, without time zones, language barriers, or HR departments, Companies like AT&T, Google, and Accenture may start bringing these functions back home, not to hire local workers, but to automate them. This completely upends the growth model that economies like the Philippines have relied on, effectively pulling up the ladder they were using to climb toward prosperity. Second, the development and deployment of advanced AI reward skills and resources that are overwhelmingly concentrated in wealthy nations. Building, training, and maintaining large-scale AI models requires advanced education in computer science, data analytics, and massive and reliable infrastructure for power, connectivity, and access to cutting-edge technologies like high-performance GPUs. These resources are simply not available on the same scale in most emerging markets. Consequently, the most valuable and highest-paying jobs in the AI economy, those of the AI architects and engineers, are being created and filled in places that are already wealthy. This concentration of talent and resources creates a vicious cycle. Talented engineers and researchers from developing countries who do manage to acquire these highly sought-after skills are often recruited by global tech giants, leading to an accelerating brain drain. They relocate to tech hubs like San Francisco, London, Shanghai, taking their expertise and entrepreneurial potential with them. This leaves their home countries with fewer startups, fewer expert teachers, and a dramatically diminished capacity to build their own AI ecosystems. In short, the countries best positioned to benefit from AI are already pulling further ahead, while those least equipped to handle the disruption are being hit first and hardest. To understand how AI is creating these divisions between countries and between people within the same country, we need to grasp a key economic concept: complementary versus substitutive technology. Historically, most new technologies have been complementary capital. That means they made human workers more productive, not replaced them. Think a power drill for a construction worker. Think a spreadsheet for an accountant. Example: the combine harvester revolutionized farming. It didn't eliminate farmers, it made each farmer dramatically more efficient. 20 people days became 1 person hours. Labor and capital worked together. Mechanization boosted productivity, raised wages, and improved living standards. Workers were augmented and became more valuable. For many high-skilled professionals, AI will act this complementary way. But increasingly, AI is substitutive capital. It can replace workers outright. AI chatbots can replace customer support agents. Code-generating AI can replace junior developers. The tech becomes a direct substitute, needing less human intervention over time. This distinction matters for AI's economic impact. For high-skilled roles involving strategy, creativity, and complex human interaction, AI will likely be a complementary amplifier. A doctor using AI to read scans, diagnoses faster and more accurately, freeing time for patient care and treatment planning. For routine, process-driven work, AI acts as a substitute. That creates a stark divide. Those who can leverage AI to multiply their value, and those whose roles are directly threatened. The economic game is changing, and the rules depend on which side you're on. A defining feature of the AI economy is the extreme concentration of capital ownership. Unlike past technological booms that saw innovation spread among many companies, the major breakthroughs in artificial intelligence are coming from a tiny handful of elite firms, primarily located in the United States and in China. Since 2017, the U.S. has produced 135 large-scale AI systems. China, 110. The United Kingdom has managed just 25. France, 24. This isn't just a lead, it's a level of dominance that gives these few companies and countries immense control over the future of the global economy. These leading companies are experiencing exponential growth thanks to a powerful phenomenon known as the data network effect. The more data a company collects, the better its AI model performs. the better the model performs, the more users it attracts. And the more users it attracts, the more data it generates, creating a self-reinforcing feedback loop. This dynamic makes it nearly impossible for smaller players to catch up as the market leader's advantage grows with every user interaction. As a result, market power and profits become incredibly concentrated in just a few dominant corporations like Google, Microsoft, and their Chinese counterparts. The financial projections reflect this reality. PricewaterhouseCoopers estimated that AI could add a staggering $15.7 trillion to the global GDP by 2030. However, a jaw-dropping 70% of that immense wealth is projected to flow to just two countries, the USA and China. Why? Because they own the AI. In 2024 alone, over 1,100 US-based AI companies raised major funding rounds, more than double the number in all of Europe combined. Tech giants like IBM and Microsoft hold thousands of AI-related patents, giving them long-term legal and commercial control over specialized enterprise tools and the foundational models that power countless other applications. This concentration extends beyond software to the very physical hardware that makes AI possible. The advanced computer chips, the CPUs and GPUs that are the brains of AI systems, are overwhelmingly designed and manufactured in just 5 countries: the US, Taiwan, China, South Korea, and Japan. In fact, over 90% of this critical hardware originates from this small group. This means that a tiny handful of nations don't just control the AI software, but also the foundational manufacturing components that the entire global AI ecosystem depends on. This is the stark reality of AI as capital. It primarily benefits those who already own the assets, while replacing the labor of those who don't. While the scale and speed of the AI revolution may be unprecedented, the experience of widespread job loss due to technological change is not. We have seen similar disruptions before, and they offer a sobering lesson about the human cost of economic transformation. When industrial automation and large-scale outsourcing accelerated in the 1980s and 1990s, it hit the manufacturing sectors of Western countries with brutal force. In the United States alone, more than 7 million factory jobs vanished between 1980 and 2010. These weren't just jobs. They were the foundation of stable, middle-class lives for entire communities, and for the most part, they never came back. The American Midwest, often called the Rust Belt, bore the brunt of this transition. Detroit, Cleveland, Youngstown were once packed with well-paying jobs in steel mills, car factories, and textile plants. Then came robotic welders, computer-controlled assembly lines, and cheaper labor overseas. One by one, factories closed their doors, unemployment rates spiked, and the economic heart of these cities began to fail. The narrative that technology simply creates better jobs elsewhere rang hollow for the millions of workers who found themselves unemployed and without transferable skills. The consequences of this deindustrialization extended far beyond the simple loss of a paycheck. These were not just economic crises. They were deep social crises. Life expectancy dropped. Opioid addiction soared, and other deaths of despair increased. Schools, funded by a shrinking tax base, struggled to provide quality education, and social mobility ground to a halt. The jobs that eventually did return to these areas often paid significantly less, lacked benefits, and offered none of the stability that had once supported entire families and communities. The economic shock created deep, generational scars that are still visible today. The United Kingdom experienced a very similar story. Coal mining, shipbuilding, and steel production declined across northern England and Scotland. Sheffield and Sunderland still lag behind the rest of the country when it comes to income, health outcomes, and educational attainment. The clear lesson from these historical examples is that even if the long-term national economic picture improves, the short-term impact of technological disruption on specific communities can be catastrophic. Once inequality takes root in an economy, it becomes incredibly difficult to reverse. At this point, it is undeniable that AI is already reshaping the global economy. The critical question is no longer if this change is happening, but how we respond to it. Whether this powerful technology deepens existing inequalities or helps us solve some of our most pressing problems depends entirely on the actions that governments, businesses, and individuals take in the coming years. The good news is that we don't have to navigate this transition blind. The frontline effects unfolding in countries like the Philippines and Bangladesh offer a real-time playbook, showing us which jobs are most vulnerable and what happens when governments choose to act or fail to do so. Some governments are already taking proactive steps. For instance, the government of the Philippines has launched a national AI strategy with the ambitious goal of retraining over 1 million workers by 2028. The aim is to shift the workforce from easily automated BPO tasks to more complex roles in AI development, data analytics, and other high-value services. Similarly, Bangladesh has released a policy framework focused on developing local AI talent, modernizing its education system, and creating a supportive environment for tech startups. The goal is to evolve from being a provider of low-cost labor to a competitive player in the AI-enabled services market. These national strategies highlight the two critical investments that every country needs to make simultaneously. First, they must invest heavily in AI infrastructure, the hardware, software, and connectivity that power the new economy. But just as importantly, they must invest in their people. This means more than just funding computer science programs. It requires a fundamental rethinking of education to emphasize the skills that AI struggles to automate. Critical thinking, complex problem-solving, creativity, and effective communication. A recent analysis of 12 million U.S. job postings found that as AI adoption increases, so does the demand for these distinctly human skills, often more than it eliminates jobs entirely. Building an accessible and inclusive digital economy is equally crucial. As of today, nearly 2.6 billion people around the world still lack access to the internet. Therefore, alongside retraining initiatives, governments must pursue policies that expand broadband access, reduce the cost of digital devices, and equip more people with the foundational digital literacy they need to thrive. The future is something we build together, and we need to start now.